Hey guys, welcome back to Vertical Momentum. I'm your host, Richard Kaufman, also known as the Comeback Coach. Guys, you're going to make sure you want to subscribe to this channel and make sure you hit that notification bell because this episode may save your life or may save one of your children's lives. My brother Justin's coming on. We're going to be talking about mental health. We're going to be talking about depression, resiliency. We're going to be talking about living your best life ever, getting stronger. He's also a mental health advocate, coach, international inspirational speaker. He is the Swiss Army knife of positive mental attitude. Justin, brother, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Hey, man. Thank you for inviting me to be on your platform. It's really great to be here and finally getting to connect with you. I know we tried to connect a lot earlier, but, life happens, and I'm very grateful to be here and to share a little bit of my story and just have a great conversation.
I love it. So, Justin, before we get started, I got a traumatic brain injury. So if I don't ask the question, I forget. What is your definition of resiliency?
Oh, man, that's a good question. And me and my buddy were talking about resiliency the other day. And, I'm like, you know what, man? Like, my life is built on resiliency. It's built on, sometimes being an underdog and overcoming, that underdog mentality. Sometimes, getting circumstances and experiences in my life that you can't really prepare for, but pushing past them. So I guess my definition of resiliency is the ability to move past those things that you can't control, right? The circumstances and experience that come up in your life that you have no control over, but you keep that. It doesn't even have to be courage or strength, but you keep that will to not give up and then keep going because those circumstances are going to come up.
All right. So now, if somebody would see Justin now, he's got a great life, great woman in his life, beautiful children. He's healthy. He's happy. He's smiling. But, it hasn't been all unicorns and rainbows. So give us a quick down and dirty about who you are and how you became the man you are today.
Well, my name is Justin Brien. I'm a mental health advocate, an inspirational speaker, and a professional executive coach. But like I like to tell people in my keynote speech, to be able to put those titles in front of my name, I actually had a battle with drugs for 10 years, alcohol for 16 years, and I struggled with my mental health ever since I was a little kid. Growing up, I had very low self-esteem, low self-worth, low self-confidence. And, I took those insecurities with me throughout my life. And what I did with them is, I always try to be the funny man. I always try to get people to laugh at my jokes because that was my need for significance, right? I always wanted to be noticed and liked by everyone because it's true to be fact is that I didn't like myself. I wanted to be everybody else but me. And what I did with those insecurities was that I grabbed that low self-esteem, low self-worth, and low self-confidence, and I opened up a bag and I put them in there. I put it on my back and I carried it with me through elementary, through junior high, through high school. And when I got out of high school, when that bag started to get heavy, I opened that bag up, but I didn't unpack it. What I did was I put, anger, depression, suicidality, drugs and alcohol in that bag. And then I zipped it back up and put it on my back. Now I moved away to play junior hockey at around 18 years old. And, that's when my drinking really started to progress. And I remember just sitting downstairs one time in the billet house and I'm like, man, I really want a beer. Like I just had a couple and I'm like, I want one more. And I realized that was, looking back on it now, that was my first ever craving for it. Because I didn't drink much in high school. But when I drank, I loved who it made me become. It gave me self-worth. It gave me self-confidence. It gave me, self-esteem. But what I didn't realize is that everything it was giving me was fake. But everything it started to take from me was very real. By the time I was 21 years old, I was pretty much a full-blown alcoholic. And by the time I was 24 years old, I was bartending downtown Vancouver in British Columbia, Canada. And I was a really good bartender. Like I could get in, get out within 15, 20 minutes, have my cash out done, everything complete. But I could do it that fast because I needed to get out for power hour, whatever you want to call it, to the nightclub so I could drink as much as I could. And then I'd walk home and dial up a bottle and have more alcohol waiting for me when I got home. Now, I graduated that year, let's say, 24, from not only alcohol abuse, but to drug abuse. I went out at 24 and did cocaine for the very first time. And I phoned my buddy, and I didn't know what happened because I drank too much that night and I blacked out. And I said, hey, man, what happened? He's like, well, you did drugs. I'm like, holy cow. He's like, but then he said something like this: is probably the worst thing you could ever say to a person with my mindset. He was like, man, you were funny last night. Right then and there, it clicked. Holy cow, I have alcohol for confidence. I have drugs to be funny. I got Michael's special juice from Space Jam. One shot of this, one shot of that, and then I'm Super Justin. I can tell you, I was the only one that thought I was Super Justin. One night I left work, and on my way home, I'm crossing the bridge, and I had this question that came over me, and it says, Justin, you think you drink too much? And I was like, no way. I'm young. I'm a bartender. I live in this big, beautiful city. There's no way I drink too much. So I took a couple more steps and asked myself again, Justin, are you an alcoholic? Well, all of a sudden I got a warm feeling come up through my body, and I said this word for word. I said, nah, there's no way you're an alcoholic. You go to work, you pay your bills, you're too smart, and you're not a lowlife. And that's why I was correlating, alcohol, or being an alcoholic with. Well, 6 months later, I moved back home to Salmon Arm, and I'm managing a nightclub. And I get a ride home from one of my buddies, and the topic of depression comes up. And to where I looked at him and said, depression. Oh, man. Depression's for the weak. Depression's an excuse. You got to man up. You got to go to work, and you got to pay your bills. Now, I don't know why I said it back then, but I definitely know why I said it now. And it's because I always felt less than. And I wanted to show everybody, that I was stronger on the outside than what I was feeling on the inside. But 24 years old, I have two major problems: alcoholism, substance abuse, and depression, right? My mental health. But at 24 years old, I'm ignoring two major problems: my substance abuse and my mental health. So that went on for, I knew at 24, I knew deep down. And, I think more people are more aware of their surroundings and their situation than we give credit for. I knew, but I didn't want to admit it, because once I admitted it, well, then I'd have to do something about it. But if I don't admit it, then my coping mechanism doesn't go away and I can continue the life that I did. But by continuing the life that I was doing, I was losing friends, I was losing jobs, I was moving around. I put myself in some scary situations to where lucky I am to be here. But then finally at 28 years old, I'm like, Justin, man, you're depressed. Justin, you abuse substances. Well, what did I do next? Well, I'd accept it internally, because it was negatively impacting my life and it was stealing everything around me. So I finally asked for help. And, I asked for help a lot. I went to over 100 doctor's appointments. I spent 77 days in rehab, 45 addiction appointments, 17 psychologists, 10 psychiatrists. I've tried 8 different meds, from antidepressants, anxiety, ADHD, because I was actually diagnosed at 28 when I asked for help with clinical depression, or major depression, which is a sadness that persists for longer than 2 weeks. Social and general anxiety, which, I would get nervous with those conversations. So I would have half a Mickey slam it before I even left my house. And then ADHD, which made it very hard for me to be present in conversation. So then I wouldn't be present. I'd forget what they said. All of a sudden the anxiety came up, the depression got triggered. Okay, well, let's start drinking. Let's cure that with a substance. But one of the biggest things is that I found one why. So when I'm about 30 years old, I met this girl, and we were dating on and off. And finally we broke up because my substance abuse was out of control. And she came to me one day and she's like, hey, Justin, we got to talk. And she's like, I'm pregnant. I'm like, holy cow. All right. And well, she's like, you have me 2 choices. She's like, I'm keeping the baby. You can either be in his life or because you don't have to. Like, you have no obligations here if you don't want to. Like, there's no way. Didn't even think about it. I want to be in this kid's life. So we end up getting back together. And not long after that, I end up drinking and driving and crashing a car. And I'm like, you know what? I need to get this under control. I need to go to rehab. So I went to rehab for the first time. And I went to a place that had 60 other men. And I know I went to all my courses, or my classes and my therapy sessions. But, after 42 days when I got out, the first thing I said to my uncle who picked me up was, I'm not done drinking forever. Well, great. You just spent 42 days away from your pregnant girlfriend who's due almost any week. And that's the first thing you said. Well, you can probably guess what happened. 1 month later, we had my son. 2 months later, I started hitting the bottle. 6 months later, she had to make probably the toughest decision of her life and, leave me at my lowest point. And I don't blame her. There was no shape to have a kid around. Well, after that, I started becoming, but during that time, I started thinking about suicide more and more and more. And when she left, I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I used to ask myself every single day, Justin, are you going to make it? Justin, it'd be a lot easier without you here. You're such a burden on people. One time, my ex, dropped my kid off at my house because I could actually only see him twice a week for 4 hours at a time. And I couldn't drive with him in my car per court order because they didn't know if they could trust me to stay sober. So she dropped off my son, and my thoughts and my emotions and my feelings were going off the radar. And when you ignore your mental health, you're not going to be able to regulate your emotions, right? If you don't take the proper meds, if you don't stick to counseling. I was doing counseling and meds, but every time I felt good, I would stop taking them. Like, I don't need you. I can do it alone, right? I'm a man. I can do it alone. Man up, right? So she drops him off, and that day I couldn't keep my thoughts together. And what does a 2-year-old want to do when he sees his dad? Well, he wants to play with dad, right? But that day I couldn't. So I grabbed him and I picked him up. I took him to the store, got him some chips, some candy, and I took him back home and I put him in front of the TV so I could distract him. And as he was eating that chips and candy and watching a movie, I remember walking in behind him and staring at the back of his head, and I just started to cry. And I asked myself, Justin, are you going to make it? Are you going to make it to see him score his first goal in hockey? To teach him how to ride a bike, get married, or graduate? And the answer every single time was no. Like, I couldn't picture myself in his future. And it's not like I wanted to die, but I thought I had to. I thought it was the only way to end my pain, my suffering, that pain that's invisible, but weighs you down like one of those weighted blankets. And I thought that was the only answer. And I was very, very fortunate that, actually, one time I ended up in the hospital for the 3rd time with alcohol poisoning. And my ex brought down my son so I could see him. And I'll never forget the way he looked when he walked through that curtain. He walked through and he looked at me and he looked at his mom. He looked at me and he looked at his mom again. He's like, Mommy, what's wrong with Daddy? All right, then it clicked. I need to end this so that he is a better father, a father that he deserves, a father that's going to pick him up when he falls down, or, teaches him the ways of life, not a dad who's going to miss time with him because of using drugs and alcohol, but a father that's going to be there for him. But I was very fortunate to start listening to motivational speaking, and I was trying to work out. I was trying to do anything I could, appointments, listening to positive music, motivational speaking, exercise. And I started listening to guys like Eric Thomas, Trent Shelton, Inky Johnson, Les Brown. Now, I had no idea who these guys were before. No idea. I just, YouTube, give me some music or some speaking. I definitely know who these guys are now. But they all talked about finding your why. And, so I started to think, Justin, what is your why? And I started to look at that little boy again. I started to reframe my thoughts. And I started to think, well, what if instead of ending it so you can have a better dad, why don't you get better so you can become that dad? Like, I always knew I was a good person, right? I mean, made a lot of bad decisions, some decisions I can't take away. And yes, I do have some I regret, but they're ones I can learn on. But I decided to make him my why, my anchor. And, there's going to be a lot of people in your life that are going to say you have to do it for yourself. And I get that. But for me and some of the guys that I went to rehab with, they couldn't do it for themselves. We didn't want to go to rehab, but we found a reason to go to rehab and get better. And so the thing about it is when you find a why and it's not yourself, it will always come back on you. Because I got better for him, I ended up getting better for me.
All right, so I want to hold on one second. I want to thank our sponsors, and then I want to go into finding our why. But I want to thank our sponsors. As you guys know, I was with GNC for over 30 years. I love pre-workouts, but they all tasted like ass. And they gave me great energy, but I would crash hard later. So I came out with my own coffee called Vertical Momentum Coffee, where 100% of the proceeds go to help veterans struggling with mental health issues and homelessness. And also, it's amazing. You can take it before your workout. You feel the energy. You start to get some mental clarity, and it's pure. It doesn't have anything else in it. So, and also, guys, if you like swag, came out with a brand new T-shirt. On the back, it says, "Today I decided not to become a statistic." So anything you buy from me, 100% of the proceeds go to help others. That's my why, is because I've been in the rooms AA and NA for 34 years, and I was taught to pay it forward. So now that's what I do. That's my why. So if you guys are interested in coffee, swag, or my new book that hit #1 on Amazon, write that down below and I'll get that information to you. So, Justin, talk to us, because my old podcast that I first started doing was called Success. Your why powers your how. So talk to us about how you had to figure out your why. Did you start journaling? Did you start writing stuff down like I do?
Well, for me, finding my why was either I found my why or I was going to take my life. And I started to picture my son growing up without his biological father and being made fun of at school. Like kids coming up being like, "Oh, your dad didn't love you enough." And I knew that he was one of the only things that, when my girlfriend left, his toys were in my house, and, I could only see him 8 hours a week, and, looking over at his toy corner and, not hearing his laugh and knowing how much that I loved that laugh. And the way he looked at me was, I need to do this for him. And like I said, it's pretty, if you can't find your why, or if you can't do it for yourself, you got to do it for somebody else, because it always comes back on you. And the thing is that everybody has a why. 100% that why is you. But if you can't make it you got to find it, grab a hold of it, and take it with you everywhere. So I just had to keep looking and reframing my thoughts for that little boy. And because I did that, I could get better for me and get better for and help other people as well.
All right. So now, like I said, I was in AA for 34 years now. And I was taught that, you have to stay away from people, places, and things when you want to get sober or clean or dry, whatever you want to call it. But also, you take you with you. So wherever you go, you're taking you with you. And really, in real life, there is nobody coming to save you. It's all an inside job. That's why it's called alcoholism. I, self, and me. So for me, I had to change the people, places, and things, and I had to change my habits. And one of my friends, James Clear, wrote an amazing book called Atomic Habits, and he talks about how you have to change your habits in order to change your life. So how did you go about reimagining and reinventing Justin's life?
Well, you know what? I like that. I didn't have that really as a choice. I'm from a small town of about 18,000 people, and I managed the nightclub. I worked at the only sports store. I worked at the mill. I know a lot of people in this town. The only person that had to change was me. My friends, for fortunate, they didn't like me drinking. Right? They but I was a very active guy. And when I like how you say you got to change, because when we were in rehab, our instructors, they're like, or counselors, are like, the world ain't changing. The world ain't going to be like, oh, Justin's an alcoholic, let's prepare for him to come out. They're like, no, you prepare yourself for the world, because the world's not going to change. And because I'm an athletic guy, you know, at hockey, there's alcohol. At golfing, alcohol. Baseball, alcohol. Alcohol on TV and movies, on commercials. At, you know, the biggest sponsors like Budweiser for football. Like, alcohol is going to be everywhere. So how do I prepare for it? Because it ain't changing. It ain't leaving. And that was, you know, learning my coping mechanisms. Because I had really good friends, and I was the black sheep. I was basically, I usually drank alone. I used to have, back when I was younger, I could find someone to always drink with. But when I moved back home to Salmon Arm and lived in a small city, I only drank by myself in my room alone. I did drugs by myself because my friends weren't like me. I was the black sheep. So I didn't really have to change my friends. But I had to change the way I looked at life and the way I coped with life and its circumstances. And what I did is I used drugs and alcohol for a coping mechanism. When I needed to escape or change my mindset, I used drugs and alcohol. So what I needed to do was find a different way to cope. And I found things like journaling, gratitude, exercise, the healthy diet. You know, one of the, I have to admit, one of the hardest things for me is sugar. Because when I quit using, man, I never liked sugar before. I wasn't a big chocolate guy. I wasn't a big sweets, but now it's something. It's one of my new demons, I guess you could say. But I'm winning the battle so far. But it was what can I do?
People don't know that, you know, sweets, sugar, it hits the same reactionary parts of the brain as alcohol, drugs, sex. It all hits the same neurons. Yeah. So a lot of times that's why you see a guy when he quits drinking, he'll be like 140 pounds. 3 years later, he's like 240 because he's replacing the alcohol with the sugar. And now all of a sudden he's eating candy and all this stuff because it's the same pleasure that's going on in the brain. It just changed to two different things.
Mm-hmm. You know, one of the biggest things I learned, though, was the power of acceptance and forgiveness. I learned not only about that in rehab, but then I learned about that in my coaching. My first coaching course that I took through the Rainer Institute out of Calgary is the power of acceptance, right? Accepting what is. And back before when I stopped drinking and I go 1, 2, 3 months sober, 9 months sober, I would look at somebody else and be like, well, if you can do it, I can do it, right? So when I thought I accepted it, I truly didn't. Now, the thing about acceptance is that you must accept it to move past it. Just like, you know, if you had something happened to you, someone hurt you, you had a bad trauma or experience, the first thing you got to do is accept it. You don't have to like it, but you have to accept it so that you can move on and that you can take your power back from it and then forgive it, right? So you can create your future and stop living in the past. And so for me, I had to accept that, Justin, I will never say I can't drink. Justin, you should not drink. And this is why. Because I always keep my past in my rear view. And sometimes if I have to, I'll look at it as a glance, be like, that's not where you want to go. This is Justin, the happy Justin, the Justin that has life together, the Justin that's helping people. This is who you are now. Now, if you feel like going backwards, you remember that Justin? Well, that Justin was destruction. You know, that Justin was the storm. And I know how there's that quote, it's like, the storm's coming, or the person whispered back, I am the storm. Well, guess what? I was the storm, and nobody wants the storm. The storm ain't good. Justin, the storm, was no good for nobody. Now I'm Justin, the calmer wind that helps blow people in the right direction, right? Including myself. So accepting, my past for my past, accepting, that I shouldn't use because it will take me back in the most recycled life was a big thing for me.
All right. So, let me ask you, because as we're recording this, it's January 9th, 2023. Most people that set resolutions have already blown them. They're already blown out the water. That's why I don't believe in New Year's resolutions. But it's that whole New Year, new me bullshit. And a lot of people say, well, I'm going to quit drinking, and they might have made it this far, but they're struggling. So what do you tell somebody they're on the cusp of going back out again? What are some of the things that they can do today to make sure that they don't have to go out and relapse? Because relapse does not have to be a part of your recovery. Because I know some people that thought, well, I can go out one more time, and they never made it back. So what do you say to people that are just getting sober, and what can they do in young sobriety to stay sober?
Well, one of the things you can do is don't go out. You don't need to go out. If you, it took me 1 year before I went to my first party. But if you are going to go out, plan ahead. Go out with people that are not going to peer pressure you into drinking. Let people know beforehand that, hey, you know what, I'm on a sobriety kick, right? So I don't want to be drinking, so please don't offer it to me. Or have an accountability partner with you. Take them with you. That's if you feel like drinking, your accountability partner's going to be like, hey, listen, no, you're not allowed. Or one of the biggest things is just don't go out yet. You don't need to. Stay at home. Watch a movie. Write down your goals. Journal about it. Get one of the biggest things there is a fear of FOMO. Fear missing out on that great time, right? People romanticize alcohol. It's like, yeah, come have a drink. Use a drink to do this, or come have a drink. Here's the specials on drinks. People take alcohol and they romanticize it like you need it, right? Remember, alcohol is just like sugar. You don't need it to be happy.
All right, so then let me ask you, because I struggle with post-traumatic stress. Now I call it post-traumatic growth from from military service and from getting hurt and all that stuff. But there's a difference between substance abuse and mental health issues, because once you take away the alcohol, you still have the mental health issues. So what was it like saying, okay, maybe it's not the alcohol, maybe I have something else going on that I need to get looked at?
Yeah, you put 60 men in a building and you take away their coping mechanism. Yeah. When I first went to rehab, that was quite the eye opener, and realized like, okay, my mental health, I've been struggling. Where did it stem from? What can I do? So learning that, you're depressed, it was, and that I knew for a very long time that I used alcohol for coping, but a lot of depression and that comes from, or a lot of alcohol abuse or substance abuse comes from hiding from something, running from something. I tell people that, I remember telling my counselor that using was better than feeling sometimes. I remember being in my counselor's appointment and I just came off a 3-day bender. I was pasty. I was shaking. I was visibly sick. And she's like, Justin, do you like feeling like that? And I looked at her. I'm like, well, for those 3 days that I blacked out, I didn't know if I was sad. I didn't know if I was depressed. I didn't know if I was unhappy. So yeah, you know what? I don't mind feeling like this every now and then. But the problem is when you choose using over feeling, like you said, it could be the last thing that you ever choose.
And John, I just want to thank you for being so open and honest. A lot of people, are afraid to put out there that they're struggling. And if you're struggling, you can reach out to me. You can reach out to Justin. We got your back. We've been there. And people will see us. They see me a number one bestseller, top podcaster in the world, but I still struggle with stuff, because knowing that like my wife can come home, have a bad day, she can pop open a twisted iced tea and enjoy, where I know, okay, I don't drink. I have to deal with life on life's terms. So when you see guys like me and Justin up here, we still struggle every day, and it's not unicorns and rainbows. We all have our good days and we all have our bad days. So we're just like you guys. So I just wanted to put that out there. So Justin, but like I said, I love that shirt that you're wearing because I believe if you if you're off mentally, physically, or spiritually, any of the three, all three are going to be off. And I believe that once you get mentally stronger, physically stronger, spiritually stronger, you have to take care of the whole person. So talk about what your shirt says and why it says, what it says.
Well, actually, now that I got my coaching certifications and stuff like that, I have a program that I put people through. It's called the Stronger You Project. So I am a life coach, right? And we go over, what you want to create in life, your roadblocks and stuff like that. But I actually have modules that I've learned through rehab, through coaching, through life experiences that I put people through to, go over their triggers, their procrastination, their self-limiting beliefs and self-confidence. But I called it the Stronger You Project because we can always become stronger or improve on stuff. And the world is ever changing. Technology, medicine, diseases, it's all changing. So we need to change too. Or not change or evolve or adapt. But we need to become stronger versions of ourselves all the time. So we can be more resilient, and deal with those things that come up every now and then that are outside of our control. And, we just don't know how to deal with. So I call it the Stronger You Project that helps you, pinpoint some of those areas that you would like to work on.
Now, also, I know that it's Tony Robbins, right? You got your Tony's a great guy. I can't wait to have him come on the show. He was the guy that he made a big difference in me a couple years ago when he was like, you know what? You have to change. Stop the excuses. Stop the bullshit. Nobody's coming for you. And I think he's the one that really got me into the personal development. So I love me some Tony. So, okay, my last couple questions are, we're living in a world where we're supposedly was it toxic masculinity, and a lot of guys don't know where. When you say to be better men, it doesn't mean to be that macho guy that walks around strutting like it's a peacock, and I think that we as men, because I'm a man and I believe in God and Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior, but I believe that men now should be able to show that they're regular people. Like oftentimes if I'm wrong, I'll tell my 10-year-old daughter, I'm sorry, daddy's wrong, I love you, and hug you. I got two, well, now they're adult boys. My other son just turned 18. I still hug him and I kiss him every day. I tell him that I love him. I think that men, we should be able to show that we're strong emotionally, physically, and spiritually. What are your thoughts on actually being a man and not just being a macho man?
Man, I hate the man up stigma. Like, hey, man, you got to man up. Well, you know what? 75. I just looked at stats because I'm writing a book right now. It's almost done, and I just wrote about the part of man up because I told myself, Justin, you need to man up. Oh, you're crying. Man up. Oh, you feel sad? Man up. Man up almost took my life. Like when I was working across from people at the mill, my head was so far gone by telling myself to man up, and my internal dialogue, and I can't repeat some of the words that I've told myself, besides you're pathetic and you're a loser and you need to man up, you're a failure. I forget people's names that are sitting right across from me. And, I did a mental health presentation for a group, women's group. And they said, this was for a school. And they said, well, we have friends that are really struggling. And they came to us and said they were struggling. And we asked them, what are they going to do? And they said, man up. We're going to man up. Like, what should we say to them? Well, ask them, how is that working for you? By manning up. 75% of men, or 75% of suicides in Canada are men. 75 to 80% of suicides are. That doesn't mean that women don't attempt as much, but unfortunately men are more, I don't want to say successful, but that's what it is, at ending it. In America, I got this from the Heads Up Guys, which is a men's mental health support group website, headsupguys.org, out of Canada, based out of Vancouver. 4 times men commit suicide 4 times more than women in the United States. So when you're thinking of telling your friend to man up and keep those, demons inside of them, it's going to eat them up from the inside. It is not manly to keep your emotions buried. It takes courage and strength to ask for help. It takes courage and strength to admit you're wrong. It takes courage and strength to accept responsibility for the things that you've done in your past. And by showing your courage and strength and vulnerability, like I did, I finally put my struggles one day on social media when I spoke at World Suicide Prevention Day. I've gained so much more respect from people by showing the authentic me than I ever had before by hiding.
Yeah, and one thing, like I tell everybody, and everybody, if you're watching, you need to get in touch with me. I'm available 24 hours a day, 7 days a day, because I would rather hear your bullshit than your eulogy.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of guys that'll say, I'll be there for you. I got your 6. But when you actually need them, you hear crickets because they're not actually really there for you. And that's something that I love to do, because the more people I help, it helps keep me alive. Because, now, so tell us a little bit about what you got going on. You got your book going on. You got any speaking events coming up?
Yeah. Just before that, though, I wanted to touch on something. I actually hospitalized myself on January 4th, 2019. And I only spent the day there because I was able to go back home with my family. But that changed my life. That's my sobriety date. That's the date I asked for help and accepted the help and was able to, I had to say those words out loud that I wanted to end it, right? But by doing that, admitting it, it really changed my life. And I just wanted to give a shout out to a friend of mine who, he says it, all his friends know, but he admitted himself, and he's been there for about 3 weeks because he knew that asking for help would help save his life and be a better father, because he has 2 kids, better father for it. So he took control of his life by asking for help, really. So I just wanted to give him a little, if people are thinking, I need to man up, well, don't be afraid to ask for help, because then you're not only going to be better for yourself, but for your kids and your partner as well. And
like one thing I've been in recovery 34 years, and they always say the heaviest thing to pick up is the telephone. And so I believe that if somebody's struggling, the best thing you can do is say, listen, call a buddy, call a friend, and if you don't have anybody, dial 988 in the States. It's a new suicide line. They're available for you, and they're going to pick up the phone and get you help if you need it. So, even if you don't think you have somebody, there's still somebody there. So my last question for you is, how do we find you? How do we support your mission?
So you can find me at www.justinbrien.com. That's my website. Or at JustinBrien19 on Instagram. Justin Inspiration on TikTok. Getting used to TikTok now as well. I always stayed away from it. I didn't really know much about it, but I'm trying to get more active on socials. But I do have some speaking engagements coming up. I partnered up with Canadian Mental Health Association, and I go and speak with them. Actually, Work BC, which helps unemployable people get jobs. I'm going to work with them and talk about mental health, but also disabilities. Hiring, they have a job fair of hiring people with disabilities. Now, what I didn't know was that, mental health or depression, anxiety, forms of anxiety, if it's bad enough, and ADHD are under Canadian government are actually considered a form of disability. And I never, through all my whole years, and I guess this was the tough love, Justin, you have depression. I never knew that it was actually classified under disability. And so I'm going to partner, forms of it, right? If it's severely impacting your life. So I'm going to work with them and speak on mental health and disability. And actually, my daughter, who was born 16 months ago, she has Down syndrome. And she's been through the ringer, heart surgery, intestinal surgery, colitis. She's one of the best things that's ever happened to us. But I get to talk to people about, hiring people like my daughter in the future, and then add the mental health aspect into it as well. And, what I'm really starting to branch out on is speaking to people in trades. Like, I've worked up north, like on the rigs, and spent, weeks away at a camp, or you go up there, you spend weeks away from your family, working 12 hours a day. You come home, you're in a house by yourself, and then you might go up for 3 weeks, come back for a week. But a lot transitioning to talk to Ben on the rigs, the pipelines, mines, stuff like that, because up there's a lot of people that they're losing to, suicide and overdose, because they make a ton of money, and then they're up there by themselves with just their thoughts and their feelings, and away from their families.
Okay, so now, like I said, Justin, I'm just so grateful that we finally got together. I can't wait for your book to come out. We're going to have you back on. This way, we're going to push that out to everybody. And guys, like I said, I want to thank our sponsors, especially you, John. If you love coffee, make sure you pick up our coffee. If you like to get a book that the last 2 chapters are on what addiction actually looks like and what recovery actually looks like. The last 2 chapters of my book, check it out, and I'll send you the link. 100% of proceeds go to help people struggling with PTSD and homelessness. And guys, if this show impacted you at all, leave a message for Justin, leave a message for me. If you need help, we will get in touch with you. We're not that guy that says, "Oh, I got your back," and then you hear from him. If you need help, if I can't get you to help and Justin can't get you to help, we'll find somebody to get you to help. Right, Justin?
Yeah, what I always say, this is one of the things I say in my speech: speak up, speak out, and speak often. And if there's nobody there to help you, you find someone who will.
I love it. So, guys, thank you so much for hanging out. It's new year, so don't worry about the new year, new me. Become a healthier you and a stronger you today. I love you guys, and like my T-shirt says, my other T-shirt I always wear, it says, "Today I decide." Those are the 3 most important words in the English language. Guys, when you make it, I love Joel Osteen, and Joel Osteen always says, you can choose to be a victim or you can choose to be the victor. So, guys, it's your choice today whether you want to be a victim or the victor. And I believe that you want to be the victor. And I believe Justin believes the same thing, right?
Absolutely.
All right, guys. So make sure you check out Justin on all the social media platforms. He's so easy to get in touch with. He's so available. And guys, I just want to say thank you so much for always supporting me and letting me be a part of your future. And guys, like I said, vertical momentum. The only way to go is up. Have an amazing week. Justin, brother, I love you.
Love you too, boss.
Have a great week, brother.
You too, my friend.